quite interesting to hear people's perception of what they expect out of Australian Shiraz. Sometimes I just have to slowly evolve that thought. Our country is so large and so diverse in terms of climate that we can grow and make so many different styles of wine here, which is fantastic. As palates change and as we're wanting more vibrant, fresh, medium-bodied wines, the Hunter has this great ability where our reds particularly are that more medium-bodied structure. The Hunter naturally has always made that style and that's what the consumers are searching for now. So it's exciting.
Today, we're fortunate to chat to Jess McLeish from McLeish Estate Winery. I'm Jason.
And I'm Trent. And we're here on our unfiltered, unapologetically unprofessional wine journey. What we're saying here, Jess?
Our saying is drink more, try more, learn more. And don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Jess, thanks for making the time to come and see us.
My absolute pleasure. It's great to be here today.
You're coming from a whirlwind couple of days. The Hunter Valley Wine Show just came by. How was that experience?
It's been a fantastic week in the Hunter Valley. We've had the Wine Companion results announced, which is always fantastic for the industry. And then the Hunter Wine Show was yesterday. So it was such a good vibe in the room. The Hunter, there was something really special about yesterday. There was a real sense of community and on the back of having a Hunter Valley winemaker get Winemaker of the Year with Liz Silkman, and that's the first time a Hunter Valley winemaker has achieved that goal. And so it's just a really exciting time in the region. And and there was lots of standing ovations for small producers and large family producers all winning trophies. So it's exciting.
Oh, that's fantastic. I kind of feel like when we talk to the winemakers and the wineries from Hunter Valley, that community feel is so different. Everyone really supports each other, and that's exactly what you're saying. We're going to dive into that. We're going to dive into McLeish Estate Wines, your wine journey. Before we do that, we'll start with our wind-up icebreaker questions. I hand over to Trent.
Okay, 6 questions. So first one, most memorable wine.
Oh, I have an international and a local.
Yes.
I find that with wine, you have to have it associated with a moment in time. Yeah. So it was the Pierre-Yves Colin-Mouret 2017 Merlot.
Yeah.
Beautiful Burgundy wine that I shared at Bistro Malines with family for a very special birthday. And with the wine show circuit, my first show that I judged, and then a case that I purchased was a Riesling Freak with their number 3 Clare Valley 2017 Riesling. And as a local Riesling, I thought that was just such great wine to win that show on that year that I was judging. And it's a wine that I've always enjoyed.
So you had those wines.
Yes.
Is there still a wine that you still want to try though?
The old classics in Australia, and those iconic vintages, the Lindemans 1965, that would be pinnacle. So old school Australian wines, that would be absolutely amazing.
Heard about it.
About it, the myth, the legend, and to actually be able to taste whether there are still bottles
Has your father tried it?
He hasn't.
He hasn't, no.
So, yes, it'd be good. I can keep dreaming though. Hey.
Okay, next one is person past or present that would like to open a bottle of wine with.
I'd love to open a bottle of champagne with Jess Fox, the Olympic gold medalist. I think that's very of the time, and the women doing so well in the Olympics at the moment. I think it would be great to pop a champagne with the gold medalist.
Is there a particular champagne you would go for?
Probably the rare Piper Heidsieck. 2006.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Favorite grape varietal?
It has to be Chardonnay. I think the diversity in Chardonnay and the fact that it's such a neutral varietal and it can be quite expressive based on terroir and winemaking style. It's always has and always will be Chardonnay for me.
Well, for some reason, whenever I ask someone from Hunter, I'm expecting a Semillon.
Yeah. Yeah. True, yeah. And it is so special to have Semillon as being the Hunter's gift to the world. Yeah. But there's a resurgence and there's a real hype around Hunter Valley Chardonnay at the moment. We know the Hunter's fantastic for Semillon, but to be able to see new varietals but also the classics like Chardonnay really showing up as being great styles.
Maybe like Chardonnay is the way to kind of get them into Semillon. It's like Chardonnay is something that they're kind of more used to.
Yeah.
And then they go, okay, let's try the Semillon from Hunter as well. So definitely good.
Yeah.
Unique food and wine pairing.
Oh, unique food and wine pairing. I love off-dry Semillon because it's quite versatile.
Yeah.
Semillon varietal as a classic style, but then making that off-dry, slightly more Mosel Riesling approach to Semillon and pairing that with blue cheese. I think.
Oh, yes. Oh, wow.
And it's something that I've always enjoyed. And at Cellar Door, we offer tastings where it is that blue cheese with the Semillon bracket.
Yeah.
So, and that off-dry just always is a nice pair.
Does McLeish do an off-dry Semillon as well?
We do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We've been making Semillon since 1985.
Yeah.
But then when it came to allocating a small portion of the juice to make our off-dry style back in 2016, we can't not do it now.
Yeah.
Like, it is so popular, and I think it's a great introduction point to Semillon if it's your first time experiencing the varietal.
Everyone's got a bit of a sweet tooth, I think, sometimes.
Totally.
So get into it.
Yeah.
Piece of advice for amateurs going on their wine journey.
Taste, keep tasting. I think that the WSET program as well is amazing. I remember going through my journey into wine and studying, and then I got to a point where I still wanted to learn and keep venturing. So just doing that level 3 WSET I thought was just the best way, and it's the best base to be able to really consolidate your knowledge on wine. But then, of course, tasting and enjoying the experience of travel, like being in a region, because you can only read so much about it, but then taking yourself to that place and starting to understand the lay of the land, I think is very important.
Yeah, it's a beautiful industry where you have food, wine, and travel. Like, who
you
can
can't complain, right?
I know.
You can't imagine it's the dream.
Art and geography.
Yeah.
It's a good mix of all the different, landscapes.
Ooh, that's the icebreaker questions. Well done.
Fantastic.
Awesome. So we want to dive a bit into your wine journey and more about McLeish Estate wines. Let's talk about you. You've got an interesting upbringing because you're second generation in the family. And for me, when I grew up, my folks were accountants and auditors, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to get into that game. But you wanted to get into the wine industry, and you wanted to get in earlier. 18 is when you started. What was it like growing up in a winemaking family, and what made you decide to join the business?
Well, my parents bought the property in 1985, and it was a 17-hectare property on DeBeyers Road. And if you're familiar with the Hunter Valley, Polkolbin's the oldest sub-region within the Hunter. So they purchased this parcel of land and immediately planted Semillon and Chardonnay onto the property. And they were novices when they started. They had no background in wine except for consuming and drinking enjoyment. And they took the fruit that they had harvested back to their home in Randwick to make their first wine.
Wow.
And that was in the late 80s, newly married couple. So it was a weekend for them just to go up to the Hunter. There was only about 30 producers, all family. And that's the great thing about the Hunter, is that it is very much about family, small producers and family large producers. And then from there, they then decided they should start to really make a commercial label. So in the 90s, they started McLeish Wines, and they had built up enough stock then to be able to start that commercial label and then to open a cellar door in 1995. So I've always had that wine background. I never had an interest in wanting to be involved initially, except for the fact that mum and dad spoke about it around the dinner table, and they enjoyed the industry in the area. And I'd be the one always helping as a teenager, not being paid, but just that child labour, I guess, as you do when you're in a family business. And I'd be popping corks at Manly Food and Wine Festival, and then cleaning glasses, and then helping with the pruning and the harvest. And from that point, I studied, got through school. I went on to be in human resource management. So that was my initial base, was to do human resource, and working for Tomago Aluminium for the early 20s when I first started. And I always had the family business there, and I'd always be helping, but it was never my absolute, that wasn't what I was going to go into. It was always going to be HR.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I decided I'd take a gap year and we went overseas traveling, and I was offered to do a vintage in Cadillac, which is south of Bordeaux, with a family-owned vineyard, which was a biodynamic vineyard called Chateau Carsin. And when I went to that area in that region, it was with that family, and their daughter was around the same age as I was, and I saw how she was kind of enjoying the industry. And I got back to Australia after spending that time with vintage and enjoying all the food and wine in France, and decided, look, I've got to reapply. So I enrolled in a Masters of Wine Business through Adelaide University.
Yeah.
And that course was absolutely amazing because it not only did it cover the business and sales side of wine, but it also covered oenology and viticulture. So it gave a really good base for how it would be in the wine industry. And I kept working with our vintages in the Hunter and doing correspondence with the study. And then after finishing my master's, I completed my AWRI through the course down in Adelaide, so through the wine research. And from there, I've just been involved and loved wine ever since. I just think it's in my veins. Like IV drip Semillon back through my veins. And I'm up again. If I'm ever sick, that's what we have to do. Yeah. So it's good.
You kind of touched on quite a few different things that you've already achieved, a lot of certification and education, but also experience. So my understanding is you're now certified to be a wine educator. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. So through all my time studying and enjoying the journey into wine, I love to educate, and through our direct-to-consumer market, we do a lot of wine education at our vineyard, and that's what I love the most in terms of people visiting and sitting them down and giving them that full experience where they get to see the vineyard, experience the wines and that education side, and then taking that one step further to then have the wines at a range of restaurants. It then allows me to do that wine education to the staff and the hospitality teams there, because for restaurants, and there's such a small margin in food that if you can offer that extra little attention to detail and that extra little piece of information and provide them with the opportunity to do a bit of staff training, I think that it really helps them along, especially if they're a small restaurant or anything like that. Yeah.
And so as an educator, what's probably like two key messages that you're trying to get across, two common things that you'd be saying either to the consumer or if it's to a business and those working in there? What are those two kind of key messages that you try to teach them?
The key messages, well, from a restaurant perspective, just focus on the area that you're from and try to make that as local as possible, like really focus in on what state you're in Australia. And then what we want to see is that then you're supporting the closest wine region to you would be a key message for when we're in the restaurant scenario. And even for consumers, it's great to taste all the old world wines, but I think that we're doing pretty amazing things here in Australia at the moment, that the wines that you can get in Australia are definitely more accessible, and you're getting the best from your own country rather than having them imported. So,
good message.
You talked about, I guess, wine education, Hunter Valley Wine Show, how it seemed different this year to previous years. Do you think there is a shift now at the moment in terms of consumers with Hunter Valley Wine?
Yeah, I think consumers are really starting to pay a lot of attention as to where their eggs are coming from, where their food is coming from. So that has translated into wine as well. I believe that the love for the Hunter Valley is there as palates change and as we're wanting more vibrant, fresh, medium-bodied wines. And the Hunter has this great ability where our wines are, and our reds particularly, are that more medium-bodied structure. So the trend at the moment, is what I'm seeing, is that the Hunter naturally has always made that style, and that's what the consumers are searching for now. So it's exciting that it's something that we've naturally been doing for over close to 200 years in the Hunter, and now it's all starting to be really falling back in love again. And I think as well the Hunter's just naturally had an evolution. Nothing's been kind of just put there and built. It's just been naturally progressing through from small 30 vineyards in the area to then being now a region where you can come up to the Hunter Valley with a family and have a weekend away with very little wine, and you can be tasting whiskies and gin, like the drinks market's changed as well. And I think the Hunter's really in tune with that. And yeah, I think a lot of new producers are coming through and it's exciting. Yeah, it's a great area to live and work.
That's Hunter in general, but about McLeish wines, has there also been an evolution as well from when
certainly
your parents started to where you're taking it now, because you took over in 2020?
Yes.
So it's now you've had 4 years kind of start to either continue to do tradition or craft it to a certain style as well. What are you kind of...
So McLeish is very classic in what we grow and what we produce. So the wines have always been made to a classic style of Semillon, Chardonnay, Shiraz, Merlot. So with our wines, they're always made to that style, and they have been for almost 40 years. Next year will be our 40th vintage, so there'll be a big party in the Hunter Valley next year for our 40th vintage. But the direction that I see our wines continuing in is to modernise through how these classic wines can be blended, or how we can change them in terms of that off-dry style, or and said the blends and fresher, lighter reds, and our approach to winemaking and how we can change that, but not change the varietals as such. Yeah.
And it's probably a good segue into the wines itself. You've brought quite a diverse range for us to try. We might jump into tasting the Semillon we've got here, which is a 2013 Semillon. And let's give this a try. Maybe if you want to talk through this, key tastings, anything interesting in the story of this?
So I absolutely love the fact that with the selection that we have today to taste, the Semillon, we haven't mucked around. We've just literally gone straight to the top. Let's not try.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's just go for a almost 10-year-old Semillon. And if I'm going to impress a friend at a dinner party, or if I'm going to impress a family member, I would always make sure that it's with a bottle of old Semillon. So this is the most glorious white wine to see in this stage of its life. With McLeish Estate Semillon, we have grown 5 hectares on the estate, and with our Semillon vineyard, it's all hand-harvested fruit. With the Semillon, it's low intervention. So when we look for whites that are aromatic and light-bodied and really expressive of the vineyard, Semillon is that one varietal that's always going to achieve that. And there's no way to mask Semillon. It's to do with vintage and vineyard. So for McLeish, we're on DeBeyers Road, so it's clay soil vineyard at about 210 metres elevation. With the Semillon varietal, we like to pick our Semillon over a series of Beaumet levels, so it's never just the one harvest where you get that searing acidity. We want to see layers of flavour, and in young Semillon, that's fantastic because it means that it makes a more rounded approach to the Semillon and gives it more fruit intensity rather than just being what an old school Semillon was, which was that pure battery acid style. So in the 9-year-old Semillon that we have here, the 2013, it's still showing vibrancy and youth, and that's the key indicator for quality age Semillon, is still seeing freshness even at 9 years old. And I suppose that's attributed to an outstanding vintage and also Stelvin screw caps, so there's no longer corks used in terms of closures for wines here in Australia nowadays, or very rarely. And Semillon, as being such a fresh, light-bodied white wine, you wouldn't want to see this closed under cork either. You want to see that aging process just slowly evolve. And at this stage in its life, it's just developing that beautiful lanolin toastiness and richness. So when it is entered into wine shows, because this wine's done very well in terms of its ratings and its show record, some wine shows they pair it with food, and at Sydney International Wine Show they paired it with food, and they had it with wasabi and tuna, and it was like a lovely, slightly more spicy match. And I thought that was a really cool way to pair a Semillon to food, and the intensity and the viscosity and aged Semillon pairing beautifully with something that has a bit more heat and intensity. So it's an absolute delight.
I feel like it's kind of like right in the window at the moment, this 2013. Like, it's not just all lanolin and butter, but it has that acidity that's still coming through. It just feels like it's perfect drinking window at the moment.
Yes, yeah. And that's it at the Hunter Valley Wine Show yesterday. I had a gentleman come over to me and he's like, we've got a bottle of your 07 Semillon. When should we open it? And I was like, there is a point where he's like, I don't want to have to say I've got an empty bottle of 07 Semillon.
Yeah.
And I was like, it is kind of, as you rightly said, it's got this window where you're getting freshness and vibrancy, and it hasn't yet gone to complete that butter. So, yeah, it's definitely that window. But what a glorious wine.
Every time I drink aged Semillon, it kind of blows me away, especially with the kind of the back end of it, that length that kind of comes through, that kind of toasty butteriness. But it's not from like oak or anything like that. It's just from the grape itself, which is wonderful.
Yeah. And the way the sugar compounds change in Hunter Semillon as well, they go from that citrus, lime, lemon to them being slightly sweeter fruits that you see coming through, and it's the viscosity in the glass and everything that changes about it. It's a positive change, and so rare to see in a white wine.
Yes.
But Semillon just is such a gift.
What a way to start. I just thought straight to the top. You're absolutely right. And to me, the smell, that toastiness is just intoxicating. I absolutely loved it. Great. That's fantastic. And so we might try a few more, but we'll ask some more questions here. And you did touch on judging wine. And you have experience as a judge on the London International Wine Challenge, I think it is.
Yes, yeah.
You go there frequently, is that correct?
I've been invited to go back to London this year. I couldn't make it over this year, but I was there in 2019 judging at the show, and it was an amazing experience, because to be not only at the Oval, the cricket oval, and I know how much my dad loves cricket, and then to have the exposure of all the countries that are entering the show. There's over 18,000 wines that are entered, and they judge over 3 weeks. So it's quite remarkable to have so many diverse minds in the room that are MWs. It's one of the largest shows to have MWs. So to be judging alongside some outstanding people is amazing. And when they see Hunter or Australian wines coming through, that's also quite interesting to hear people's perception of what you should expect out of Australian Shiraz and sometimes I just have to slowly evolve that thought to say, be a bit more open-minded. Like, our country is so large and so diverse in terms of climate that we can grow and make so many different styles of wine here, which is fantastic. And not to just purely think about what's exported over to the UK, which in their mind is a jammy, rich Shiraz. Yeah. So to evolve that thought to go, we can actually achieve elegance and lighter, more plush reds.
Are you exporting much though to like the European market in terms of like
we keep all of our wines for our own country.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we don't export. We don't largely export. We have private customers that we export to overseas, and that's fantastic. They're old members of our wine club, and we privately send wines to every part of the world to our customers. Wow. But in terms of commercially exporting, we're not a large commercial exporter. So McLeish is very much direct to consumer through our wine club.
Great.
Yeah.
Were you judging at the London Wine Show in 2016 as well?
I would have loved to have been. Yeah. It would have been good.
Because you won, was it the world's best Semillon?
No, I wasn't judging then. No. So when we received the awards for International Best Semillon, I was fortunate enough to go over to the UK for the show, and it's just amazing because, in London they have all the wines coming in from other countries, so there's a big merchant awards as well as the wine awards, and they're now doing sake awards there as well.
Yeah,
so
I saw that,
it's amazing.
It's growing.
It's growing. And you can be judging wine one day and then sake the next. It's quite diverse.
So you've done your WSET, you also done your kind of wine judging course now as well, and you're also doing professional wine judging. Obviously you have a kind of library of different wines to kind of pull from. So in terms of McLeish wines, I kind of touched on it before, but how has that kind of contributed to the type of wines that you're creating now?
From the wines that we're creating now, I just really want to be producing the best quality fruit from our vineyard. So my focus for McLeish Wines is to make the vineyard as sustainable as possible. We've been a member of the Sustainable Wine Growing Association for 2 years now, and that's been fantastic in terms of improving the level of quality for our grapes. And the diversity that I always see with our wines is that we want to make wines that are very fruit forward and more fruit driven, especially being a producer in the Hunter where we get this dynamic of being a hot region but also can be quite a wet summer region as well. So we get the rain but we also get the heat. So we get lovely intensity through our fruit in those vintages that are of the quality. So it's exciting.
So it might be a good opportunity to try the next wine, which is the Reserve Chardonnay. I'll just hold this up to the camera. It's a 2022 Reserve Chardonnay. If you just want to talk through the story of this one.
McLeish has two lines, the Vineyard range, which is our classic every vintage range of wines, and then we do our Reserve range. The Reserve for McLeish is based on a selection of best barrels that make the Reserve. So 2022, this was the 37th vintage for our Chardonnay. The Chardonnay at McLeish Estate has lovely concentration of fruit. It's all hand harvested and kept and maintained in a series of old and new French oak barriques for 10 months prior to blending, and the allocation is done after that 10-month period to blend. So we have a few select barrels that do have the use of Merlot, so that richness, but we do like to create this lovely elegance and a slightly more tighter coiled style Chardonnay that can have that time to open up over time. So as it opens up, it's just showing stone fruit, white peach.
Yeah.
Lovely. That oak framework around the edges, but that pillow of primary fruit really sitting on the mid palate beautifully.
It's definitely more of a kind of like a medium-bodied Chardonnay than the kind of like the tighter, brighter type of Chardonnays, which are kind of like, it's kind of going back. I think Chardonnays kind of went one way very much, and now it's kind of coming back towards the centre, which is what this is kind of coming to now at the moment.
Definitely. The analogy I always use with Chardonnay is like it's now the number one consumed wine in Australia. It was Shiraz for a long time and now it's Chardonnay again. But I always tend to say it's like Dolly Parton to Taylor Swift. They're both country music singers, but one is quite big and a lot of oak, and then the other is a more modern approach to Chardonnay. And I was like, I always say that there's somewhere on that scale between Dolly and Taylor that you're going to fall in love with Chardonnay. So
what a good comparison. It's so true.
Yeah. But we were even like at the Real Review, and Hugh and Hawk was saying that one of the most asked questions is, where are those buttery Chardonnays? So some people are actually looking for those kind of big Dolly Parton type of Chardonnays as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what makes that Chardonnay varietal so exciting is that on the vine, it's really neutral in flavour, and it's only until it has the art of winemaking applied that it can then take on such a wide range of flavours and profiles. And it's definitely lovely in the Hunter Valley to not only see Chardonnay, but also for McLeish wines, we have always made a classic Semillon Chardonnay blend. So blending that with Semillon just keeps it really beautiful, linear and light and bright. So it's a classic blend that is made in the Hunter by a lot of top producers, and that's a lovely way to enjoy Chardonnay as well.
That's a classic Hunter blend?
Yeah.
Chardonnay and Semillon?
Yeah, that's the Hunter blend.
How would that age?
Beautifully. Absolutely beautifully, because the Semillon keeps the Chardonnay just so pristine and light. Yeah. And especially for us, we would generally look towards an even split between the Semillon and the Chardonnay. Yeah. And that even split just gives it that lovely balance, and it's always a bench blend. So the Semillon just slows that aging process down in a really lovely way. So
that'd be really interesting.
I haven't heard that before, which is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Chardonnay is only in oak for 3 months when it comes to our Chelsea, which is our Semillon Chardonnay blend. So, so the Chelsea is named after my daughter. So,
Perfect. You touched on sustainability before. Is that kind of taking any inspiration from when you were in France? You talk about the kind of biodynamic kind of wineries. And what is that? Like, how do we interpret sustainability, biodynamics in terms of a winery?
Yeah, so our approach at McLeish is to apply as much organic practices as possible, especially after La Nina and having those wetter vintages. It was really important to us to build back our soil nutrients and build that back up to make the soils healthier, because we noticed a bit of degradation in the soils from 21 and 22 vintages. And then coming into 23, we really had to build that again. So for us, sustainability is about minimising our impact on the land and minimising the amount of tractor passes through the vineyard. So following that approach. And then in terms of the aspects that I've taken on board from the time at a biodynamic vineyard, it very much was about just bringing back that natural habitat. So we do plant trees in and around the property that really encourage natural life to come back into the vineyard and to really.
Do you notice, how does that affect the wine itself? You mentioned like healthier soils and everything like that. Does that also affect the grapes that you grow and the wines that you produce?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And because of the age of the vines now as well, we've got a vineyard that's around that 35 to 40-year age across all varietals, and we're able to see the consistency that's coming through from our approaches. So with our approach to sustainability and maintaining soil and canopy health, it's allowed the fruit, even in those more tricky vintages, which, the Hunter Valley is a really unique area in the sense that we're on the coastal side of the Great Dividing Range, so we get full exposure to all the different climates. So even in those years where we do have high rainfall or a few tricky situations, we can still maintain a really good crop, and that's just attributed to best vineyard practice of really any vineyard in Australia. If you're doing the vineyard practice, then you will find those tricky years to be a bit more manageable.
Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's move on to the next one. So we're moving into the reds here.
I'm really interested about this one.
And this is a blend. So it's the McLeish Estate Tri Moir, if that's how you pronounce it.
We do often have guests to the cellar door that say Tri Moir.
Tri Moir.
Tri Moir. Tri Moir.
Yes.
So the Tri Moir is one of our most exciting reds, and this is the direction that I see McLeish Estate going in terms of we're sticking to our classic varietals, but we're producing a lovely, slightly more Beaujolais style blend. It's quite slippery and slurpy and really juicy red fruits. It's made to be a more bright, fresh, medium-bodied red, and it's a blend. So Tri Moir is Scottish Gaelic for three companions or three friends.
Okay.
So the three companions are a blend of Shiraz, Merlot, and Cabernet. So it's upfront Merlot and then 25% Shiraz and 25% Cab.
Is that a common blend, or is it something that you've...
It's something that we have designed, and it's a blend that we've made now since 2013, and it just, like all blends, the purpose of blending is to make a wine that's seamless from the outset. You want to blend for balance and blend for that complementary style. So every vintage, when we're focusing in on blending the Tri Moir, it's always made with the interpretation that we're going to be making a wine that's going to be enjoyed from release, and with the more structured Cabernet and Shiraz, it can be cellared, but the lovely juiciness and brightness of this young red, it's just lovely and approachable and quite plush on the palate.
Plush is the word. It's that, juiciness, but it's not overly kind of like in your face. I think that's the Shiraz, the Merlot coming in, but that little touch of Cabernet give it structure as well.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to me, because I never had that kind of blend before, but it definitely works.
Yeah. And we have always loved growing and producing Merlot.
Yeah.
And, you can talk about fads and trends with wine. Yeah. We've never followed trends. Yeah. Like we're making classics.
Yeah.
And Merlot has always been a really key red varietal for us. We always blend our Merlot with our Cabernet, make classic Bordeaux red, but in the Tri Moir, it's blended with the Shiraz as well. And it just produces a lovely juiciness for the red, and that's where we always love to see our Merlot as being a bit more muscular, but still with that lovely ripeness and primary fruit drive. So.
Yeah.
I think slurpable, if that's what you said,
yeah.
drinkable, all of that is the right description for this. Absolutely. We were talking about Merlot the other day, and I was really curious because I've got to admit I haven't had much Merlot in my life, and I'm curious why, if it's been out of fashion or out of trend. What is it? What is it about Merlot in Australia that it's not on trend?
Well, I think the Tri Moir is a great way to get people back into Merlot. Yeah. And often I find that people will be enjoying Merlot indirectly, whether it be through as a rosé style or in a blend with Cabernet. Yeah. Like it is just such an obvious red when you're looking for an uncomplicated varietal. Like when I think of Merlot being a thin-skinned, high-acid red varietal, I think of juicy red fruits, just that lighter, fresher expression of red. And the media definitely has a big part to play in what we see as a trend in wine. So I think there was that movie a couple of years ago that said a bit about Merlot and took it out of vogue. But fashion, hey, all fashion, Vogue fashion, it comes around again. So that's what's happening in wine. Like we've seen it now with Chardonnay. It's in vogue again. It's back in fashion. So I think, when you plant a vineyard, you plant it with a long-term foresight. So Merlot's back, in my opinion, because we've got the vineyard.
Merlot's back.
Merlot's back. Especially in, as I said, we use predominantly our Merlot is used to blend as well. So we like all the beautiful qualities it brings to a blend.
Yeah,
so.
I think there's a perception where all great wines are wines that you can age. It has big structure, big tannins. Whereas our wines, they're just like delicious, Yeah, they can just drink now.
Yeah, and like the expensive reds of the world, like Right Bank Bordeaux, Merlot. Yeah. Like some of the most expensive wines in the world.
Yeah.
So it's quite remarkable.
Where do you get the idea for these type of blends? And also, is there anything else that's you're playing around with in the vineyard as well?
So we have played around a bit with field blends in the vineyard because majority of all of our blends are bench blends. So we like to really have that ability to control the wines through maturation, and then at the very end stage, just prior to bottling, that's when we construct allocation and blends. So field blends has been a new concept in terms of picking everything at the one time and fermenting at the same time as well. But in terms of, the blends, we always love to see these wines with, the balance. So,
wow.
I was looking at the labels and you were describing Tri Moir.
Tri Moir,
because it's easier.
Do you have to say with a Scottish accent or something like that? Or?
We've got our Hunter Highland lunch coming up in September, and that's our big Scottish day. Yeah. So there's a few Scottish accents there. Yeah. I don't have.
Where's yours? Yeah,
I don't have a Scottish accent.
Your father?
He doesn't know. No. Grandfather though. Yeah. So he was in Australia and came over to Australia in 1908. So that's where the Scottish history comes from. And we, through the family vineyard and winery, we always promote our Scottish heritage through the Hunter Highland lunch. And Bob gets out and plays the bagpipes, my dad. So, there's a iconic picture that we've always loved, which is a misty day in Polkolbin, and we're like, you can have people walking through a vineyard, but why not have a bagpiper? Yeah. So having the bagpiper walk through the vineyard, it was super special. And there's a McLeish coat of arms that we have on the label. It's just special. It ties everything together, and I think authenticity and family and just having that person to resonate with, whether it be bagpiper or the Scottish
There's an
influence.
identity
It comes,
that you've got.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when people visit the vineyard, they're going to see that
Yes.
firsthand. They walk in and they see Scottish heritage throughout the estate and throughout the cellar door.
I wanted to ask about that because the coat of arms, as I'll show up the 2023 Shiraz, which is going to be the next one. I don't know if you can see the coat of arms on the footage there, but I'll read what it says. It says, "Touch not the cat, but a glove." And I'm just trying to work out, what does that mean? Is there meaning behind that?
Yeah, so the clan coat of arms is shared with Clan McPherson, and it around the belt where there's a Highland cat in the centre, you do see "Touch not the cat, but a glove," which means be protected through life, just be safe, be cautious. It's with a lot of our wines, we do like to bring in the Scottish influence. So there's the Tri Moir. There's also our sparkling range, which is Culloden, so the Battle of Culloden. And what I find to be most entertaining is that through Netflix and through shows that are on Netflix like Highlander, they talked about that battle.
Wow.
And it's like all of a sudden people are emailing us saying, "Oh, we were just watching Highlander and we realised you've got a sparkling Battle of Culloden." So there's that, and and then we have the Scottish Days as well, the Highland Festival, and so the Scottish influence is definitely there. And the Old Killy, which is our off-dry Semillon, is named after the Scottish town where we're from. So there's a lot of Scottish influence when it comes to McLeish.
Do you have the Braveheart as well?
We don't have the Braveheart. That could be a new one. That'll be a new one.
But I do think, and this is a key role that I do want to talk about next in terms of marketing and how you're positioning yourself in the winery. You've got a clear identity. And I think that's key for any winery to be known. Obviously, the quality of the wine has to be good, but also if you've got a strong identity, you'll be known in the market.
Very much.
So let's talk through and try the 2023 Shiraz. If you want to talk through this.
So this is our old vine Shiraz. It's a beautiful, energetic block on the estate that's on clay soil. It shows lovely blue and red fruit, quite vibrant. 23 was a fantastic vintage off the back of some cooler La Niña years. It was perhaps one of the longest vintages that we'd seen in the Hunter. We were still picking up and towards March for our estate vineyard. And vintage in the Hunter is generally January, February, and that's like it's go time. But 23 had a cool start to then a very warm end. So it was one of the most perfect vintages. It produced reds and Shiraz particularly that were very elegant and light-bodied. So so when we are looking at Australian styles of Shiraz, and as I would refer to Hunter as being Shiraz, and a lot of Hunter producers do tend to refer to Shiraz as being Shiraz, and that really speaks of the style. So we're making reds that have optimal ripeness when they're at about 13.5–14% alcohol, and they're showing lovely concentration but without that big frame. So lovely, elegant styles. And they have that more dusty savouriness as well on the finish. And so 23 is a really celebrated vintage after those cooler years.
That's delicious, and I think it's kind of the view on what a Hunter Shiraz is like. It is that elegance that's kind of driving through, very different to all of the other regions within Australia. But it's a style that I think we like a lot more nowadays.
I think this is very much a focus on fruit. I think there's not that much oak coming into it as well. It's more focused on fruit. But definitely has that kind of concentration, but not, to your point, doesn't have that kind of big frame around it as well. Like the alcohol doesn't kind of shout out and hits you in the face. It's a very kind of light kind of heat that kind of hits you. So that's very much similar to the Tri Moir. That is very much a kind of like a very easy drinking type of wine.
Yes. And the great aspect of Hunter is that you've got these windows of opportunity to enjoy, which is similar to Semillon, which is for Hunter Valley Shiraz, you can enjoy as that first 24 months of its life with that fresh, vibrant, lively primary fruit, or then it's going, even though it's a medium-bodied structured wine, it's going to then cellar beautifully for decades. So it's in the good vintages, the they have concentration, but the structure is more medium frame. So we're very fortunate with Hunter Valley to be making reds that are, very approachable when they're young, which fits very well, I think, with the Australian wine consumer. 48-hour ageability with most households here. So.
Yes. What was the stat? Like 95% of wines get drunk within the first 24 hours.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
Drink now.
Life's too short.
And I guess when I'm tasting wine, I always look for what is in the glass right now has to be approachable and in check. You know, a wine is going to evolve over time and age, but it has to be structured perfectly from the outset. You know, there's plenty of wine tastings that you might go to where they'll say it will improve with age, and it's like, no, it's got to be drinking superbly from the outset. So
yeah. What's next for McLeish wines though? Like, are you going to kind of stick within your kind of vineyards at the moment, or are you looking to kind of branch out to different varietals, different areas, do different things? Is there something you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so McLeish Estate is a really special part of the Hunter. It's in an area that's got a lot of history, and that is something that I look to maintain in the future, is that sense of place and history and continue to tell the story. For McLeish, because our main market is direct to consumer, it is just about building on the experience at the cellar door and hosting events externally that really get to engage and educate consumers in a fun way about wines and about the Hunter. So we are doing improvements internally within the cellar door to bring out those more sensory pairings, and through some we do Semillon and sushi, and bringing in that food and wine aspect as much as possible.
Yeah, I love that how, you know, we talked about, you know, food, wine and travel, and then you're trying to bring that kind of, I noticed that you kind of, a lot of folks around the experiences that you're trying to create as well, like the Hunter Highland luncheon, the Semillon sushi, the regional tasting platters that you're trying to do. So it really gives a really good opportunity, not just go there and try a flight of wine, but actually to kind of immerse yourself into that experience with maybe your family as well. Yeah. So it's not just for the adults, but also for the kids as well.
That's it. And the Hunter Valley, like on DeBeyers Road where we are, the estate, the vineyards are there on the property. So we also live on the property, and the winery is on DeBeyers Road. So everything for us is on that same stretch of land. You know, it's not about going externally to source fruit from another region or anything like that. It is purely about really promoting the Hunter for what a great region it is, and knowing that we're coming up to 200 years in 2028, I think it will be 200 years of Hunter wine. So, you know, I think that there's enough within DeBeyers Road, within our property, that we can continue to maintain and elevate on the experience. You know, don't change something that isn't broken. So keep it going, you know. And I think that's something my parents would always voice as well, wanting to just maintain.
We're probably getting towards the tail end of the interview. Did you have any last questions?
I think we kind of touched on it, but not explicitly. But I just want to congratulations on 2024 5-star Halliday Winery.
Thank you.
I saw a few wines got quite good scores there as well. So it's definitely, you know, the effort they kind of put into the winery and the wines as well. It's really kind of come through, especially the Semillon like that. For me, that's the highlight of the day. But you also have the Tri Moir and the McLeish as well, the SSB they also get.
Yes, yeah. It's wonderful to see the consistency with the wines, and I think that that's something that speaks volumes about our winemaking team and our vineyard team, that we're just doing consistency really well at the moment. And anytime, as I say, if you want to impress anyone, you just pull out an aged Semillon. So that's what we done for Halliday, and they like it. So we tend to love to do that each year, and and the wines are always there and available, especially with aged Semillons. I think that's really great for Hunter producers to show some some age on their wines, you know, because they're so rare. We'll do the cellaring for you. We'll do the hard work, and you just take it home tonight and enjoy it. We've done the hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's been a great tasting, and absolutely, I agree. I think the aged Semillon's been a highlight. I also love the Shiraz, and that kind of reinforces to me that pursuit of I want to have more of the Hunter Shiraz and get that out there. As we wind it up, Jess, did you have any last comments or messages for the audience? Anything about McLeish wines, anything about Hunter Valley, any events coming up?
I think the key takeaway for McLeish is that it's authentic to Hunter and it's classic Hunter. So you're not going to be seeing a wine on a shelf, and wine is such a tactile product. You need to taste to know what you're going to be taking home that night and enjoying with your beautiful dinner. So support small producer and support estate producers, and the best wines you're going to find are going to be the wines that you're going to seek out yourself and taste. And I just encourage everyone to join wine clubs. I think wine clubs are fabulous. You know, you can select your own wines and make up your own mix of wines, and they just get delivered to you. It's Christmas 3 times a year. It's perfect.
Yeah.
So visit the Hunter Valley. I think that's also key. It's a really dynamic region at the moment, and we're all very collaborative, and I think a lot of other regions are looking towards us for inspiration at the moment, you know, in terms of making these fresher, brighter style reds, and picking slightly earlier to make these really beautiful, vibrant reds, and that's the trends that we're loving at the moment in the Hunter to see. So
yeah, perfect. Trent, did you have any last thoughts?
I think, get out to Hunter, have a look at the experiences from McLeish.
Thank you.
Semillon sushi, you know, that seems really interesting. But yeah, just get out there, I think. Support local.
100%.
Yeah, I think all of the interest is getting shown. It's getting acknowledged in the results that are coming out from the Hunter Valley Wine Show and Wine Companion. But we can see it here. There's great diversity there. There's also great things that are coming out. That blend is the first blend that we've tried of that. Certainly a lot of innovation coming through. For those that are watching and listening, certainly get out there. Try McLeish Estate wines. Jess, really thank you for coming in and visiting us and spending the time.
Pleasure. Thank you.
As we like to say here, drink more, try more, learn more. Thanks, everyone.